Hello, everybody. We made it to the last session. These are the strong recruits. You guys are here. I appreciate that. All right, I love it. So next up, we have Russell Zara, who's here with us from Elsevier. He runs Agile development there. So he spent 6 years of his career working on Jira Server and has spent the last 4 years working on cloud. So he's here and he has expertise on both sides. He's here to tell us about both worlds. When he's not at work, he is leading the Philadelphia Atlassian user group or maybe spending time with his wife and 2 kids. And as a fun fact, he used to be a professional tuba player. So he played in the Hershey Symphony, Allentown Band, and was even featured on the Today Show. So maybe you can ask him for that later at Bash. All right, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Russell to the stage.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? This is the last session. We're just about to ship it live. I want a little bit more. How's everybody doing? Come on. All right, all right. You're going to learn that I am very loud, and I have energy that I have no idea where it comes from. So, as she mentioned, most long-term Jira Server admins, I was a long-term Jira Server admin. I was skeptical of going to cloud. Okay? A lot of server admins in the room are probably skeptical of going to cloud. You're here so that you can see what I'm about to say and then poke holes at it. That's what I did. I'm going to take you on a journey of what it was like for me going to the cloud. I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks that helped me, some techniques to keep it running smoothly, and I'm going to show you how to navigate concerns around things like information assurance and risk that come with security on the cloud. So that I can get to know everyone better, raise your hand, and I want everybody to raise your hands here, if you came more than 30 minutes to get here. Not just from the other side of the convention hall, actually, to get to the convention hall. It probably took me 45 to get to this room. All right. How about if you cross state lines? I'm looking for people that live in Nevada, not in Las Vegas. All right. How about if you crossed country borders? All right. I like to see these hands up. Awesome. Welcome. So I came not only from a place, but also a time. That's me in 1998 with my brother and sister. I'm going to be talking about moving, and not just the moving of my hair from the top of my head down to my face. Look at that hairstyle. That's the 90s. But I'm going to take you through that whole journey. So as I mentioned, my first personal move was in 1998. We moved out to Pennsylvania from Ohio. I'm very proud about Ohio. Some people were giving me a hard time about the Browns a minute ago. They're going to win the AFC Championship, I tell you. So much laughing, I don't know. So, in 2008, at Lockheed Martin, I got my first experience with Atlassian. Someone came in and said, hey, we're going to try this software out, see what you think. It was a lot better than the tools that we had, I will tell you that. It took a little while to learn, but real quickly I got into administrating environments. In 2015, I moved over to a company called Elsevier in Philadelphia, and that was my first experience on the cloud. They had just migrated, and they were experiencing some difficulties on their configuration. They had a great configuration, some people that I knew well, and they brought me in to try to help out to see if we can clean this thing up. And today, I'm finally home living in Marlton, New Jersey. Hopefully no more moves. I will say that from that 1998 to there, I've moved 15 times. And I'm thriving on the cloud. And I'm here in amazing Las Vegas, first time here, not only to Las Vegas, but also my first time to Summit. And I'm talking to all of you. And it is such an honor to see so many people here taking time out of your Summit, choosing this session over other sessions, to come and listen to my story and to go on this journey. That's also a picture of me with my wonderful 2 daughters, doing our favorite thing, which is sitting in the yard and just watching cars go by and waving at people. I'm teaching them how to slow down, which is really hard to do in New Jersey. And my beautiful wife, Katie, she is just beyond amazing. So as I mentioned, I work at Elsevier. A lot of you may not know who we are, but we're doing amazing things. We are the 4th largest content provider in the world behind the likes of Google and China Mobile. We are working to solve amazing, amazing problems in the world, which I'm going to go through a couple highlights. We've been known since the 1800s as a publishing company, and we just went through this amazing transformation to being now a leading global information and data analytics company. So go from publishing to now we're going all digital. And not only are we going all digital, we have a cloud-first approach. So it's an amazing time to work at Elsevier because we have the opportunity to address several global challenges in science and health. Some of those challenges impact each and every person in this room. Here's one. A recent research shows that even though we are exponentially increasing our spend in research, still only 1 in 20 drugs are actually successful at treating the diagnosis that they're actually trying to do. And alongside heart disease and cancer, medical error is the 3rd largest cause of death in the United States. That's staggering. These are spaces in which information, analytics, and technology can make a significant contribution. And that puts Elsevier in a unique position to aid in that effort. We've been working on combining our vast quantities of structured data with technology supported by our operational expertise. So basically, we're helping save lives. We're putting the data when it's needed in the hands of those that need it. So that's who we are and what we're using Atlassian products to do. Give you an overview of our environments. We do have a 10,000 user server license still in the UK. And we've been putting significant efforts in going to the cloud. We started off by migrating to an environment that's now at about 2,000 users. And that's the environment that I help administer. And we currently have about 5,200 globally dispersed employees utilizing Atlassian cloud products. So that's a bit about Elsevier and the instances that I've worked with since 2015. And that brings me to today. So why did I go through talking about all these moves, both personally and professionally? There's emotions and concerns in any move. Over 15 moves, I've learned this really, really well. A move can feel very scary. It can feel full of risk, and it's full of the unknown. So going to cloud is just like moving in real life. Going to cloud from server, something you've probably been using for a long time, it can feel very scary, as it did for me in 2015. It can feel very full of risk. It can feel full of the unknown. You have no idea what you're dealing with. So what I want to do is I want to share with you how I overcame these emotions and these concerns, what those tips were. And also, as a former server admin, I'm proud to tell everyone that I've embraced the cloud, and I'm actually cloud first. I actually just helped a server environment the other day, and it felt kind of foreign to me, and I was like, why can't you just go cloud? So there's 4 key tips that I'm going to share with you. First one is face it head on. The next one, explore. Followed by identify your challenges and embrace it. So face it head on. Franklin D. Roosevelt, I love this quote. Everyone's probably heard it. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The biggest scary part of going to cloud is just fearing going to cloud. Just go at it. If you go head on at it, the most, especially in a move, the quickest way to get to your final destination is a straight line. So why wouldn't you do that in any migration? The next is explore. The best way to learn anything, cloud is no different, is to experience it. Get lost and find your way. You'll learn more in personal discovery than you ever will following a map. This is me with my mom in 1998. Both my mom and my sister and I, when we moved, when my dad was busy taking on this new, exciting job in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, we set out on adventures, and she taught me how to learn a new area. And the first thing we did was we went out and we got lost. We didn't bring a map. We didn't look where we were going. We just drove. What I learned by that is an amazing lesson. If you take a map, you're just going to build a dependency on that map, or in today, GPS. How many people have some local areas in an area you've lived for years that you don't remember how to get to because you're so dependent on just putting it into your phone? You'll build a dependency on that map if you use it, but if you go out and experience, you'll build a deep understanding. Discovery builds that deep understanding in any environment, both physical and with software. You'll learn your boundaries, your safe areas, and what your limitations are. Jira is no different. Cloud's scary because you don't have the same ability to fix an outage when it occurs. I can't just go and reboot a server. They would really, really hate me if I did. But how do you know what you can fix and what you can't fix without help from Atlassian? There's general guides to migration, just like a map. But it's more memorable. In Atlassian, you can close your ears, break it, and learn. You are going to learn so much breaking your environment and learning, okay, don't do that. Get lost. I advise you to do it before you have all of your users over on that environment. From the Jira admins in here, can you raise your hand if you've ever brought down your environment? Oh yeah, that's experience right there. You're probably some of the people that your company goes to first because you're the one that's experienced the pain and learned how to avoid it, learned how to navigate that geographic area. So learn your boundaries, learn your environment, gain a deep understanding of cloud, and you'll be better off for it in the long run. So you have to identify your challenges. Similar to that, how do you know what to fix if you don't know it's broke? When we moved, one of the hardest things was my brother was in college in Bowling Green, and my dad couldn't convince him to come along, so he stayed behind. I can't imagine that type of difficulty to have one of your kids stay behind when you move 500 miles away. For me, that was the first time I was more than 10 minutes away from my brother. That was my biggest challenge, so I identified it. What I found was when he would come to visit, I had this very finite time that I knew I could plan and make the best of it. What I ended up finding was what I thought and perceived was my biggest challenge ended up being the biggest strength of our move. I developed such a deep connection with my brother. He just flew to Baltimore with me in December, paid a ton of money on a flight, came to Baltimore just to go to a football game with me, to watch the Browns narrowly lose, but next year we'll get them. We got so much of a deeper connection. Identify what your challenge is in Jira and Cloud and Confluence going to the cloud. What you might find is that might actually be what makes you the strongest as a company and makes you really thrive. And finally, embrace the change. I don't just mean put on a good show. Actually embrace the change. Every environment move, just like a move geographically, has resistors. It's human nature. Can you imagine after your sophomore year in high school, the most critical time in developing your social network, moving 500 miles away to a new school where they've already established their social network? Who was my dad's biggest resistor? This guy. My dad truly believed that it was the right move for the family, even though it was incredibly hard. At times he had fierce resistors, but he embraced the change and we followed. If he was negative about it, wasn't certain it was the right move, at least visibly to us, it probably would have ripped us apart. We wouldn't have believed and we wouldn't have gotten behind him. But he's an amazing manager and an amazing leader, and he led us through it. If you embrace the change, find the benefits, truly embrace it, that the move is a good move for your users, they'll follow you. You might have a little bit of a miserable time with a few of your resistors, but if you keep true to that mission, they're going to follow. One particular advantage of embracing and truly embracing is you're more likely to find creative workarounds and creative solutions, okay? You're more likely to go that extra mile to help your users get past a crisis. So, identifying your challenges. The first challenge that we faced was understanding how to get access, okay? And how do we embrace? So let's start out with the fact that you get early access to the latest and greatest Atlassian features, okay? We got early access beta into Jira Next Gen. It first came out, and man, I was so excited about it. I held my users back after I learned a few things, but then the best part is they're constantly listening because they're a great agile company, right? They want a short time to their customer to get feedback loops so they can fix it quickly. So they're going to be more attentive to you when you have feedback. One of my coworkers, Cliff, is administrator when they first rolled out the new user interface with the big shiny sidebar, which by the way, I love it now, hated it then. I've learned the amazing power of it. He left some not so nice feedback when he disabled it, and they reached out to him. They set up this session where they did a user research session. He probably oversold it a little bit. He said that, hey man, so I had like 17 people looking at me on this computer screen. They were watching where my eyes were going, and someone holographically appeared behind me. That last part, maybe not. But he was so impressed at their level of customer interaction. They truly cared about making this the right product for us. I have heard countless stories of Atlassian reaching out to their customers and making sure they're hitting the mark. They truly embody what they're saying on the stage, and I can vouch for that. So the next thing is there's obviously a lower cost to administration. You don't have physical hardware that you have to administer. No patches and updates to apply. You have a higher success of those patches when they apply them because they've been doing them constantly. And it's really rare to have any issues with an upgrade for us. Doesn't mean that they don't happen, but when they do, once again, they're quick to respond, they're quick to correct. When you do have an outage, they resolve much faster. They have 24/7 support. Smaller companies might not be able to afford 24/7 support when it comes to a local server on-prem solution. In a past instance, if I was off on a weekend and an outage occurred and I didn't have my phone on me, we would have an outage that would last 24 to 48 hours just because they couldn't get a hold of me to restart the server. You don't have that dependency on cloud. Cloud users can always access status.atlassian.com. If you haven't heard about this while you've been here or haven't seen it, it's amazing. Your users can log in. Looks kind of like this. By the way, this is almost always the state when I go to status.atlassian.com. So it was really hard for this to actually show an example of an outage if I couldn't find one. Your users, not your admins, they can too, but your individual users can go to status.atlassian.com at any point in time and see the uptime information or any known issues that are happening with any cloud instance. And not only can you see the overall the summary roll-up, but if there is an outage, not only can you see a summary of what's going on, what they're aware of, and what their expected uptime is, but you can scroll down to see the exact service that's impacted. So that allows you to quickly triage and notify your users. One last thing, sorry. In the upper right-hand corner, if they don't see an outage, they don't have to report it to your local admin, your site admin. They can report it directly themselves to Atlassian. So if you're off on a weekend, you're off at the beach, you don't have to get bothered. They can put the issue in and get it resolved by Atlassian quickly. They can also subscribe to updates so that they can get alerts if anything ever goes down on cloud. This is fantastic for our senior management just to have that knowledge. Is this really an issue? The third benefit I really want to highlight is SAML integration. So if you don't know what SAML integration is, it's security assertion markup language. It allows you to enable things like single sign-on, to tap into your Active Directory account authentication. It gives us the ability to tie in our Active Directory and have automatic user provisioning. And that's that feature that I'm sure you've heard lots about here, which is Atlassian Access. You can easily integrate. Our integration is not one of those standard boilerplate ones. Ours is one of those more custom ones. But we're evaluating options like Okta to just make it simpler. You can enforce two-factor authentication, password policies, and sync your Active Directory for user provisioning and deprovisioning if they leave the company to save you time and increase security of access in one easy place. It has been an incredible offering for us and has brought my amount of time administering our environment way down. It makes me able to have the time to address the more pressing concerns instead of, can you give this person access? There are so many more benefits. One I want to highlight also that I didn't put on this slide, and when I was giving this talk in Philadelphia, somebody pointed out, when you go onto the cloud, integrations with other SaaS offerings is a snap. It is so easy to do, to integrate with Slack, GitHub, Office 365. I could go on and on. Those seamless integrations are amazing. There are so many other benefits. I would love to hear from you guys afterwards what you guys find as the benefits in cloud. So you now understand some of the benefits. One of the things you have to do is you have to be a good tenant. You have to be a good neighbor. You are now in a shared environment on AWS with other companies. You can't just go in as an administrator and double your cache or double your resources. That was the first thing as a site admin I would do. Oh, we're running slow? I'm just going to double it. Until eventually somebody was like, you can't afford that. So now you're on a multi-tenant cluster. Clean configurations are king, and I'm going to walk you through a few of these. That doesn't mean to say that this isn't also a good practice for those of you that are server administrators that aren't going to go to cloud. There are some things that even server administrators need to do that you can learn from this, hopefully. First one, avoid auto refreshes on your dashboards. Please, please, please avoid them. So here's one here. I come up with creative names for my dashboards, by the way. If you have your users on their individual desktop going in and putting in 15-minute interval, like I used to do in my Jira infancy, they are constantly pinging your server unnecessarily. If they want a clean pull, they can just hit F5. All my references for hotkeys are going to be on a PC. Mac people, I'm sorry, I am not up to that level. Auto refreshes are good if you're using it for an information radiator or a dashboard that's kind of on an automatic cycle. Everyone else, please advise and educate your users to stay away from this because it's just going to incur extra cycles. The next one, keep a very close eye on the complexity of your Confluence pages. How many individual calls between Jira and Confluence do you have on any one page? Who has looked at a Confluence page that looks like this? Being a former PMO, I used to make pages like this. This is 13 independent calls to Jira from one Confluence page. Every one of those Jira issue macros is a separate call. That is really a lot of processing time. So take a look. One method that I use is using Portfolio and embedding. By the way, bad screenshot, ignore the 12 issue links. I just scrolled down from the other image. This is one call to Jira. And it's interactive. People can go in and they can filter the results on that portfolio view of your roadmap and get your roll-up statuses. One call instead of 13. When you get into larger programs, imagine how big that gets. It's so much so that in Confluence on cloud, they'll limit you to I think it's about 25 independent calls from one Confluence page because they don't want to see that happen. I was helping out triage an issue the other day where the Confluence page, someone had 175 calls to Jira on one Confluence page, and they were wondering why their instance was running slow. That's a lot of processing power being eaten up for something that someone can get in one view. So the next one is select add-ons that run your critical operations at low use times. We are a global company. On our instance that I administer, we have groups in Vietnam, St. Petersburg, France, Germany, London, St. Louis, Houston, and Philadelphia. I almost forgot myself. We calculated out when there was the peak time for us, and then we selected an add-on. In this case, I'm going to highlight the one that we did, which is EasyBI. EasyBI is great. Here you can see I can select what projects I want to pull my report on, what fields, and also most importantly, I can schedule when I want that to run. We evaluated it against a number of other reporting add-ons, no names please, where they incurred their processing power every time a user ran the report. Sure, you get up to the date up to that second reports, but at what cost to your server or to your cloud server, right? This we could schedule. It pulled one pull nightly. We still had the ability, if we had a critical time that we needed to pull, we could go into EasyBI and do a pull manually. But our executives were more than happy to have, wait, this is accurate to today? Sold. So be smart about which add-ons you choose. So it happens. You've paid attention to all these tips, but your environment still starts stumbling. When I was a server admin, as I mentioned, I'd go in, I'd assess the situation, I'd go in through Apache, and the first thing I would do, probably before I even understood what was going on, I would double the resources. Now I don't have the ability to do that. One day, a super helpful Atlassian support person, which they are all amazingly super helpful, taught me to generate HAR files. As a former developer, very, very formal, I want to emphasize that, I was used to going to, once again, PC hotkey F12 and opening up the console to be able to see my network traffic and see where slowings were occurring. I never really thought about generating a HAR file. Man, did it change everything for me. So as you can see here, we have an image of a Confluence page, and I bring up that developer console on the right-hand side. I can see a lot of really good information on this screenshot. Now, I had to be picky because our instance almost always runs lightning fast. So I picked a few outliers here just to highlight for this. I can look at the load time and see that these 4 operations are taking a little bit longer. It's not as good as an Apache load, but it gives me more insight than I thought I had. If I still don't know what's going on, maybe it's a filter that's loading slow. I can identify that filter and figure that out. But maybe I still can't figure it out. I have to submit a support ticket. The first thing I do before I even go to support is I right-click on that, open up this window, and at the very bottom, save as HAR with content. This will generate a little download file, and then you can just attach it when you create that support ticket. This is going to save 3 to 4 back and forths with support because you're giving them what they need to assess the exact situation, exactly what type of situation you were in when you were incurring the error. So how else can you make your instance run smooth? This is really going to be helpful for the server folks as well. You understand what it means to be a good cloud neighbor. You understand you can't always fix things yourself on cloud like you could on your own private server. You need to practice efficient administration. Less site admins is key. Man, I used to hate seeing this. There was a great talk at the 2016 summit. A gentleman by the name of James Hunt gave a talk how 5 admins administered a 60,000 user instance. It's available on YouTube. Please go look it up. It's amazing. I've seen instances where there's 2,000 users and we have 40 to 50 site admins. Our servers go down, or our cloud instances go down all the time because we have too many people up there playing around in the back end. Errors were constant because administrators weren't talking to each other. They didn't know what changes they were making and what the impact was, and they were blowing up other teams and thinking that everything was hunky-dory. It's a technical term, by the way. On the other hand, I've seen servers with less than 6 site admins and far more many users, and everything runs like clockwork. As I mentioned earlier, you can use Atlassian Access. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. It's amazing. But that alone removes a huge demand on your site admins. That makes it so that you can have those 5 to 6 admins. The next one is role-based permissioning versus group-based permissioning. In my infancy in Jira, I always used groups. It was easy. You add a user, you add them to what group they're in, they provision, and that's their access. Problem is, it requires site admins to change. So we now use groups for company and department affiliations. So if we have a subcontracting company come in, et cetera, and roles for everything else. Role-based permissioning allows you to delegate project-level access and admins to be able to administer who has access to their projects. You now put that onus on your project leads and on your squads. So that empowers them. Why would you not want to try to embrace something like that? Allow them to control who has access to what. They can simply add or remove access and entitlements whenever needed without consulting a site admin. Imagine what time that frees up. Here's an example, it's super small, I apologize, of a typical role-based permissioning scheme. Yes, there is a group in there, site admins. I always give permissions to everything. It's just as a catch-all, just to be safe. But everything else is 100% project roles. These slides will be available, I believe, later on, so you can go back and look a little bit closer. But there's a bunch of articles on Google that you can take a look at, and also on community.atlassian.com. The next tip, reduce your special snowflakes. So if you don't know what a special snowflake is, I think that I'm one usually. It's users that think that they are a 100% unique situation. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of my moves personally and also in business, that's very seldom the case. There are amazing companies out there. I am proud to be a part of one of those amazing companies. But to think that I'm doing something that is absolutely 100% unique in every single way is kind of naive. So what we do is we try to start minimizing. I focus in on statuses, resolutions, and priorities first because they're global. If someone adds a priority, it's applicable to every project on your instance. There's no way to be able to narrow it down and say, I only want this priority for these projects. It's the same thing for your resolutions. How many people have looked at the resolution field on your ticket when you're selecting a resolution and you've got like 100 values? And some of them are pretty much the same with like a different capitalization. It's mind-numbing, and it's incurring extra processing cycles because those are each individual table IDs on the back end. So statuses can be messy and confusing, but at least you have workflows to be able to narrow that down. But once again, it's still additional database tables. So here you can see an all too common situation that I often have to address. You can see a massive list of statuses here. Some of these are minor tweaks. I still ask developers to please explain to me the definition between dev done and dev completed and why they should be two different statuses. What's even more of a headache? Who noticed the scroll bar? Look at that little thing. It's so cute, except to me. That is an absolute headache to deal with. Okay? Workflows can be painful, but they don't have to be. I've seen workflows with 20 all the way up to 60 steps. I'm not going to say that that there isn't some use case out there that absolutely needs that. That's ignorant of me, it would be naive. But be careful not to confuse workflow with process. That's all too common of an issue. Process is a sequence of tasks. Workflow is a way to make that sequence more productive and efficient. If you think about that, it's going to make conversations about your workflows in Jira that much more efficient. The more simple your workflow, the shorter cycle time for your teams to get resolutions to their customers or get new features out. And you don't need administrative help to change it as often if you're keeping it simple. There's a great book out there, The Phoenix Project. If you haven't read it, I advise it for everyone on so many different levels, but this is one of them. So once again, I've seen a workflow admin window that looks like this. It's a lot of workflows. By the way, did you notice Software Simplified Workflow is the name for all of them? Every single one of those workflows is the exact same workflow. To do in progress done with 0 variation. Now part of that is how you create new projects. If you're just creating a new Agile project, it'll just do it. But you have to have that education as an admin to be cognizant of what you're doing when you set it up. So the other part on that too is who saw, once again, the scroll bar. It's even smaller. I'm starting to think it's not so cute. So the next is custom field contexts. Okay? This one, I swear, I could do a 3-day workshop just on custom fields, and easily a day of that would just be hammering in use contexts in your custom fields. So much of what you're doing is dirtying your back end with custom fields. Once again, you're going to have issues where somebody wants a custom field, they go in, and you see a drop-down. Oh, that's perfect. It's named product. Oh, the drop-down list isn't what I want. So I'm going to call it product mobile, just so I can get my special drop-downs. Now you've got a new custom field. No, don't do that. So using contexts, like in this window here, we've now taken in this example, I have 4 different custom drop-downs in one field based on context of what project that field is being used in. And it's really, really easy to do. It took me a while to realize that the link was even there. It's right there, add new context. There's a little prompt, it'll walk you through, and you're done. That bit can clean up your back end so much. Once again, both cloud and server. So the last tip that I'm going to give is one that I really like, and one that we've developed over a long time, and other people have referenced and developed their own, and I've creatively grabbed some things from them, is our Confluence shopping cart configuration. So the Confluence shopping cart configuration is a storefront of sorts for users seeking information on what is possible. So as well as helping them submit a request for a new project. So we have a Confluence page here, and what you can see is all of the different capabilities of what you can do. Now, when you go to Jira Next Gen, you're not going to need most of this, right? You're giving the power to your users, but some of you aren't going to have Jira Next Gen for a while, and they're continuing to develop new features, listen to their users, iterate, and increment on new and amazing features in their product. So for now, we have this. They can go through and see what is available for default configuration schemes, screen schemes, fields, workflows. Here's an example of 4 different workflows that we use. A lot of times, customizations, those special snowflakes, are a result of people just not knowing what's possible. They don't know that it exists, so they're going to create something new because that's the quickest way from point A to point B. But if you educate them, they're more likely to choose something that already exists because, you know what, hey, that's actually a really good best practice. I like that. We're going to leverage that, and we're going to learn how to be a better development team. Then they can go into Jira, and they can create a request for a project to be spun up. Here's a request for a new project. We're calling it the Trendy Phone X17. I don't want lawyers on me, so we're going to avoid all copyrights. And they've requested, and on the right-hand panel, you can see all of the details of the project that they want. Okay? They can still select from the drop-downs if they want something custom. We allow that. And we do encourage that if there's something that doesn't work for your team. We are very big into Agile. But if they select that they want something custom, it is going to notify them that you have selected something custom. There's now an increased lead time on creating your project, because we need to have conversations and understand exactly what you need so we can get it right. And also make sure that they just didn't miss something that's available. In addition, they can also see what the status on their project creation is here. So as you can see, I put a comment on that. I'm working on this project creation. I see your special note about having a need for a custom field context to be added. And I've scheduled a meeting with you next Tuesday, March 19th. Giving your users who are requesting new projects that level of information and insight buys you a little bit of time as an admin to not have to be fighting them back, you know, like one of the shows here in Las Vegas with the chair at the Lions, right? I don't know if they still exist, but just bear with me. It's my first time here. I'm just going off movies. So, now's the 600-pound gorilla in the room. Security. When I first went to cloud, that was my first question. No, there's no way. Now, I came from a DoD background at Lockheed Martin. There's no way some of those instances are going public. Nope. Not happening. So at Elsevier, we have very sensitive data. We have to worry about things like GDPR. We have to worry about things like HIPAA. Elsevier's developed what's called a TPSAQ, Third-Party Security Assessment Questionnaire. It's a 51-page questionnaire that is sent to every vendor, third-party vendor that we use, and they fill it out and send it back. It then calculates a score on 4 primary areas: on overall risk, business risk, data risk, and connectivity risk. Those of you that have been dealing with a lot of security and risk issues, those are the big 4, right? If you don't have that 51-page questionnaire, you don't have to start from scratch. There is a way you can go to Google, and feel free to write this down. Google in SIG questionnaire template. First result is the one that we used to start our TPSAQ. It'll get you going down that road. Then all you have to do is just modify it for what's important for your company or your client. So you've got the questionnaire. Now you need to decide the classification of the data that you're housing on that solution. So what's the sensitivity? Are you putting source code on it? Is there customer PII, personally identifiable information? Is there confidentiality on any of that? Is there HIPAA? Right? All of these things are things that you need to include when you're rating the results. Those forms will help you do that. No matter what you do, cloud sprawl is still a risk. Cloud sprawl is something that many talks have covered, is the ability for users just to go up and say, oh, free trial, it's cloud, cool, I can do it. And now you've lost all visibility on where you might have company information up on the cloud. That's where most of your breaches are going to happen, not on things that you know exist, but the things that don't. So they're generally free to evaluate, which makes it even easier. And they're hard to develop good governance on a tool that you don't know about. So I'd like to walk you through a quick example. Raise your hands if you or one of your clients or customers use any of the following cloud applications that I'm about to list. First off, who's using Atlassian and the cloud? I'd like to know who the cloud folks are. Okay, all right, I'd like to see that many hands. Awesome, hopefully there's more next year. Who's using AWS? A lot more hands. Who's using GitHub? Okay, who's using Slack? Yes. Who's using Microsoft Office 365? It's gonna be most of you. So I decided to evaluate their third-party, the TPS-AQ scores from what they submitted to us. That was forms that those companies filled out for us. I assessed them against Atlassian Cloud's results. I wasn't sure what I was going to find. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include it in the talk. But I took a roll of the dice. I got the forms, ran the information. What I found shocked me. You'll see the blue is Atlassian's score on risk over overall business risk, data risk, connectivity risk, compared against each of the other 4 vendors. This blew me away. Not only were they the lowest risk, it wasn't even close. So if your company or your customers are already using one of these other solutions, they're already incurring the lion's share of their risk. Now I have to add the caveat, this is based on what Elsevier holds important. What your customers hold important might be different, so you need to do the evaluation yourself. It might not always be this stark, but this blew me away. Real quick, I'm going to run through the breaches, right? You still think the more breaches happen, the more your customers are going to be sensitive to putting their stuff in the cloud. So I ran through the 3 big ones that I could think of recently: Home Depot, Target, Equifax. I'm going to pick up the pace here because I know we're running out. Home Depot was a POS, point of sale, system malware. Somebody installed something in the point of system sale that started skimming customer information. Target, a HVAC vendor that was there doing service, lost their username and password. Someone went in, used that, logged into the system. They didn't have data segmentation, and they accessed a bunch of other databases. Equifax was a little bit bigger, and this one I want to cover because this is so crucial. They had the Government Accountability Office found 4 main findings: identification, detection, segmentation, and data governance. Identification was the big one. This was related to the Apache Struts vulnerability from a couple years ago, if you remember that, when that came out. They got the notification that there was a vulnerability. They sent the notification out to their server admins. They had a distribution list for their server admins that hadn't been updated a while, and none of their server admins got it. So that's one part. The next part was they thought they were being really good, and they purchased a tool specifically to inspect for network malware. They forgot to update the security certificate, so it wasn't able to run, and so it wasn't able to detect for 2.5 months after the initial attack that there was even anything going on. Then there was their inadequate segmentation. So they were able to get in through, I believe it was, and actually I have it here, so I'm going to reference, it was the online dispute portal. Something that might not have been that crucial, but there was improper segmentation, people got to other databases. And then finally, data governance, they got to a database that had an unencrypted username and password database stored, and then used that to go shopping in all of their other databases for any information they wanted. The main point here is that these were not the result of cloud at all. But yet, most people will associate these with the emergence of cloud as being a cloud first for most of our companies. Whether you're on server or cloud, you still must practice information security and proper information security and safeguard your company and your information. It all comes down to education. So let me just wrap things up, okay? We talked about how back in 1998 I had hair, but it was also my first personal move that taught me a valuable lesson in transformation. In 2008, I was exposed to the world of Atlassian for the first time at Lockheed Martin over in New Jersey. In 2015, I made the move to Atlassian Cloud in Elsevier. And today, I'm home in Marlton, New Jersey, and thriving on the cloud. And I'm here in Mandalay Bay, which is really amazing. But are you ready for your M. Night Shyamalan moment? Yes, I have bad dad jokes. The story hasn't been about me. It's been about you. Where is this in your journey to the cloud? I'm here hopefully to be a catalyst for you, to give you information to go back next week and start having these discussions and realizing that it's not so scary. It's not as full of risk as you might have thought, and it's not quite as full of the unknown as you want, or as you had originally thought. So that leaves me with that last question of where has the 2019 Atlassian Summit, where does that fall in your journey to the cloud? Thank you.